Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Blakemedia. How's everybody doing? So, I've been asked on a few occasions, what is Blakemedia? What's the end goal of Blakemedia? How did Blakemedia get its start? Well, let me begin by saying that Blakemedia is not about a moment. Blakemedia is about an evolution. And so, I want to say, going back to 2012, the curiosities of drug addiction led me to places like Lowell, Mass. and Worcester, and I would observe the act of addiction. My drives down there were embedded with curiosity about why. I knew what was going on in the Boston area at the time of 2012, but I wanted to see a little further, which is what led me to cities like Lowell and Worcester, which were heavy in the drug addiction. And of course, at the time, it's not like it is nowadays where you are openly, actively using. So, in my observance of those things that were going on, I kept asking myself, why? For me, it's always wanting to know what's happening, why it's happening, why does it continue to happen. So when I saw the things I saw, and that led me to other things that didn't have anything to do with addiction, I continued in my journey with life. And it wasn't until 2019 or 20, about the time of COVID, when I began to a resurgence of curiosity, because there was a new way of doing things. And that new way of doing things was the hands-off approach. There were political substitutes where we're not going to lock them up. We're going to allow them to have places to use drugs. And that to me was mind-blowing. Now, in retrospect, let me give you a backdrop. My mother worked in drop-in centers in the Boston area, and she dealt with a lot of mental health issues. And I would often come visit her to look at these places and to see what kind of work she did and the experiences of these people. And I could see that these people were having issues that needed to be addressed, and she cared enough. That's the key. She cared enough. And likewise, when my mother passed in December 8th of 2020, I took it upon myself. I took a picture right next to her lifeless body and said that I'm going to continue this work. I'm going to take it further. And that's when the evolution of Blakemedia became a reality, eventually became a reality. In Boston, Mass, I would drive around the Melnia Cast area, better known at the time as Methadone Mile, and I would drive in circular motion. I would look and see familiar faces, new faces. And so I said, if I'm going to do this, I need to engage with people. And so I parked my car, I circled the block a few times, I'd sit or lean against the wall and watch people. I felt the need to get closer to this addiction, what was driving this addiction. And so I found myself engaging with people while they were getting high, while they were going through all of the hustling to get enough money to get the product. And on the other end of that, I would watch law enforcement, and I would say to myself, this is like something that we only saw in a movie that became a reality, which we never saw in a movie. But this is a new reality where it's a hands-off approach, where people are now allowed to do drugs in the open. This is policy driven, obviously, a new policy where lock them up was not the attitude anymore. It's we need to help them. So for me, it was, well, why? Now you need to help them, when before it was a lock them up attitude. Did it have anything to do with race? Oh, absolutely. No question about that. However, it didn't stop me from wanting to know why. And so I began to interview people. I began to interview, if I interviewed a woman, I needed to know if you had children, who was catering to them, the state or the parent. And most often it was the parent. And people that were in active addiction, what led you there? How long had you been there? Where are you from? What type of drugs were you using? How long had you been using? All of these questions, when asking, everything was kind of similar because a lot of people had been to meetings before. They were involved in NA or in Narcotics Anonymous when I say meetings, or some had been to AA when I say meetings. So when I would hear these things or hear, I often thought of the pain that they were stuffing, because that's exactly what they were doing, now being allowed to do. And it didn't sit well with me. Why should it? So, but it wasn't my place to try to do anything except uncover what happened. Why is it happening? What do you want to do about your problem? Are you receiving any help? If so, by who? If so, by who, then how consistent is this? Whatever these entities were. These were my questions often, and it made me then say to myself, well, I need to put this together. I need to put this in a form. I was ambitious at the time. This was in, I want to say 19 or 20. People needed to know. I want to be the one to tell them. And so that's how Blakemedia was born. And I put together my first piece of work in the year 2020 during COVID. Yeah. And it was, I put it out there, and I want to say the summer of 21. Yeah, is when I first put it out there. And there are a lot of people that are involved in it behind the scenes. Actually, no, there's not a lot of people involved behind the scenes. Eventually I allowed others. It's not like an allowance. I began to share what I was feeling, what I was thinking. And as a result of that, others began to inject their ideas into the stream of my thinking. And so I accepted that. And as you can see right here, it says Blakemedia. And on the flip side, it says W.O.R. period. R.D. period, which means when others respond differently. That's a platform that I stood on from the day I got clean, which was in August 21st, 2003. And I never looked back. And as far as that goes, but yet I've always continued to visit where I came from, because I never forgot, and I'll never forget. I stand on that. So because my mother, in her work to be of service to people that were going through all kind of mental health issues and stuff like that, and me observing this stuff, wondering what was going on, why it was going on, why it continued to go on, I would talk with her, the only reason I would talk to her is because I wanted to know, how did she feel that she was helping people? Did she feel like she was being of service? Were there barriers, and so on and so forth? And just like with me, of course there are barriers. There were barriers then, there are barriers now. But the fact that she was about that life, that I become about that life. My spark was curiosity, but I saw it in her. And so it became with me. And so when I put my first work together, the drone was in the air to see what that area, what was going on in that specific area. And that was Boston, by the way, Methadone Mile, now known as Mass and Cast. But I like to stick to the original script, Methadone Mile, because that's what it was. And changing letters doesn't change your reality. Changing letters does not change your reality. So with that said, there were other things. There were other things that were going on that that I was attracted to, and I said I wanted to be a part of that. And by wanting to be a part of that, I had to put myself out there. So I said, if this is going on here, what's it like in other cities? What is going on in different parts of the country? I had a burning desire to know. I didn't want to read about it. I didn't want any people telling me something. I wanted to see for myself with my eye and to understand with my third eye. And so that meant it was time for Blake to travel. And I did. And the first place that I went to was Los Angeles. And that was in 2021, I want to say, or 22. I forget which year it was. But yeah. And I was blown away. Skid Row, 50 square blocks. I did not know what I did not know. And I saw a lot of people with mental health issues. I mean, bad. And I would sit on San Pedro Drive, which is the main street, big, wide streets with all the action. I sit there, it was warm out, just sit there and watch all of the active addiction take place. You see people that you could tell that were living in insanity as far as the mental health goes. And then there were others that were just all about the drugs. Some were selling. There was prostitution. And I was a witness to all of this. And I was asked, why do you care? It brought me back to my mother. Why do you care? Because help is needed. Of course, as I said to you earlier, that I was going to take it to a different level on her deathbed, and I did. And I told this woman who asked me why did I care. And the only reason why I walked by her tent and I could smell the marijuana. She says, "You want some?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't smoke that. I've been clean for a long time." And she says, "Really?" I says, "Yeah." At the time, was it 21 or 22? So it's been like 18 years or something like that. And she says, "And you're from where?" I said, "I'm from Boston." And she says, "You come all the way out here?" I said, "Yeah, because I want to see. I want to know." And she was confirming for me. She hadn't seen her kids in a few years. And as a result of this conversation with her, was she motivated to try something different by making phone calls, by sitting down with her management team, which she hadn't done. And she thanked me for it. I says, "This is how it works. One addict helping another without parallel." That was my response to her. And she laughed. And then she cried. And that was the last time I saw her. What became of that, I do not know. But I was grateful that I was able, that we met one another, where I gave her the motivation that she needed to, or she felt like she needed to become a part of that. There were other isolated incidents like that one where I was able to assist someone that was inspired by what they heard me say, and they were able to find their way, at least moving that a direction to find their people, or get reunited with their family. That's happened 3 times in all of my work, which is beautiful. But yeah, so there was LA, and I had gone there again recently. I had went again with someone else because he wanted to see what was going on. I definitely wanted to show him what was going on, and he bore witness to it. And there was Philadelphia, which I'd gone to by myself, and I also returned to Philadelphia because there was someone else who wanted to see. And he got to see, and he was blown away by how terrible how bad it was there at the time. And this was in, I think, 2022. I did go to the Tenderloin section of San Francisco. I did go to Seattle. Did get to go to Seattle, Atlanta, Washington, Miami, and these places. I did go to a few other places, but I went there not to document. I just wanted to see. It was just like, I need to see what I've been hearing about, and I saw it. I talked to people. I had a cop tell me. I had a cop drive. I'm sorry. It was two cops who drove up to me and tell me, say my name, and I responded like, "Hey, how you doing?" And the passenger says to me, "Listen, the only reason why we're doing this is because we know what you're doing, and we're doing because we sent someone up to you, and we could hear everything that you were saying, and it was genuine." And so that's how that became with that situation, and it made me even more inspired to continue this work. So in the beginning, it was about the drugs and who was doing what and how you dealing with this, but then it evolved into the mental health. It evolved into the trauma. It evolved more into the unseen, those things that were packed in with trauma that people have never really dealt with. And when I would sit and talk with people, I talked with one woman who was from Compton, and she lived in the Skid Row area. She was from Compton, and I forget where she lived at, but she was in Skid Row. She was well familiar with it, and she talked all about carrying a knife this long, one of them Bowie type knives this long, and she talked about her, not even her addictions, because she wasn't really into drugs. It was a lifestyle. She had friends and people that were in the streets. Nipsey Hussle was her hero, and I can't recall her name, but I do have Nina. That's her name. I have her in one of my clips. And so, yeah, Blakemedia was all about an evolution. And I really wanted to know. I really wanted people to see what was going on in different parts of the country and tie it to everything was going on where I'm from, which is Boston. So it felt good to be able to do that. Of course, there were people along the way who asked me, "Well, why do you do this stuff, Blake? What's it all about?" It's all about a reality. It's all about what's happening. It's infecting and affecting families, tearing them apart. So the picture was obviously bigger than me. I didn't think that I was going to change anything, even though I was kind of ambitious about going to these different cities. Like, wait till they hear what I got to say, But it's like, I felt good about it, and I still feel good about it, because I'm always going to challenge the system, push the boundaries, and say what it is. Not say what you want to hear, but I'm going to make you uncomfortable. And it's what it became. It's what it became for me. It's what it always was. It was always about challenging my surroundings. That's never going to change with me. But it's not easy neither. So Blakemedia, yes, I love what I do. Earlier, I mentioned about injecting others' thinking into the stream, others' ideas into the stream of my thinking, like getting in front of the camera, not being behind it. And so that was the biggest thing for me, because I didn't like hearing my own voice and then looking at myself talking. But then I had to get used to it because it was a challenge. And I was able to overcome that fear and embrace that. Now it's like, here I am, front and center. There are a lot of people that appreciate what I do. Some don't care, and that's all right by me. I'm not here to save nobody, because I can't. I don't carry that savior complex. But what I am going to continue to do is challenge my surroundings. What I am going to continue to do, as far as Blakemedia goes, is continue to be that voice of the underdog. And I will say that when I was was it Los Angeles or was it Atlanta? I think it was in LA. A white cop says to me about this homelessness and this addiction says, you're going to see a lot of people that look like you. And I paid attention to what he was saying. He says this homeless population is mainly black people. And that's what I saw, mainly black people. I was like, damn, I did not know what I did not know. I just didn't know. And I was blown away. And you look at LA County. LA County is like mainly black homeless population. And I mean, creating an atmosphere for people to live, as far as housing goes, anywhere in the country, is you just don't create housing. There has to be laws have to be passed. Money's got to be moved around and shifted here and there. But it's like, what's really being done? Nothing. Yes, if I got $200 billion and I use $1 billion to build a few buildings to put some homeless people in there, and then I put it on the front page of the news and say, hey, look what I'm doing. Yeah, of course that looks good. But what's under all of that? You're not really helping the masses. You're helping a few people. So, I don't get caught up into, it's a liberal state or it's a conservative state. To me, that's what the little people do. I'm looking at the bigger picture. And I know that the bigger picture, that they're both tied to the same damn system. So for all y'all that are being strung along with that other one versus the other, y'all are being misled, my opinion. And I just refuse to buy into that Democrat versus Republican when they're both doing the same damn thing. One just wears a different mask. And a lot of the flowery discourse that people get caught up in when it comes to that. It ain't good. You got people in programs that I met along the way that are like really locked into that battle. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. Let me know when you feel like you've arrived somewhere as far as that goes, how that works out. I know the end results of it. The end results are nothing. Fall on your face. There ain't no one versus the other. They're both tied to the same thing. Policy driven. I was sharing that with a brother out there in Los Angeles. And so Blakemedia as an entity is about exposing, sharing what's happening, why it's happening, why it continues to happen. And I never forgot the day that I asked my mother, why do you do this? She said, because I care. That was 17 years ago. No, I'm sorry. Mistake. That was 35 years ago. About 1990, I want to say. 92, somewhere around the early 90s. And one of the places that she worked at, I asked her, why? She said, because I care. So why does Blakemedia do this? Because he cares to uncover what's being covered. And it doesn't matter who it makes uncomfortable, because this isn't about you. This is about the bigger picture, the effect that it has on people, the people that's been infected by a lot of this stuff, this madness that's going on and that continues to go on in the name of whatever. So yes, Blakemedia is a social media entity. Blakemedia is independent journalism. Blakemedia is about, no matter who you are, no matter what your situation is, talk about it. Talk about it. Share your experiences and let people know what's happening. And this is what I've been able to do with Blakemedia, with more to come. Digital video production, that's another process that I'm working on now. And everything that I've learned by myself, basically. I mean, I've asked questions along the way. I've asked many questions along the way, and some couldn't even give me an answer or didn't give me the answer that I needed to continue on. So I kept asking until I got the right information, right answer and right information, right information and right answer. As I keep asking, and where I don't get one here, I'll get here. And another thing, as it relates to reaching out to people, like whom I can't reach, you can reach. Whom you can't reach, I can reach. This is how we build a bigger platform And with Blakemedia, I'm going to continue to do this. Of course, this isn't without its hurdles. Everything has its hurdles, and I understand that. But I'm going to continue this because there's more to uncover. There's more that's out there that needs to be spoken of and addressed. And this is how it works, because we get uncomfortable about the things that are going on. But what do we do? Look the other way, or do we address them? So I'm definitely going to continue my quest to, as Blakemedia, to continue to speak out as relates to trauma, mental health, and I'm using all the media stuff that I can that's been given to me, that I've earned. And another thing that is important that I share with you is this did not start the Blakemedia thing, because prior to this, there were podcasts that I was doing with other people because of some inflammatory statements that I made and that I stood on then and I stand on now. There were the movies that I was in. I played a mayor in 2 anti-racist films, and I also played a detective, Detective Monroe, which was kind of funny, but I enjoyed it. It's film. You can find it on IMDb, Blake Rickerson IMDb. Also, I was a part of Boston Neighborhood Network, BNN, and their journalism, again, talking about different issues that affected people. And it was all, to me, an evolution that became or has morphed into Blakemedia. So with that, thank you, and hopefully you were able to get something out of this, with more to come. Word.